Here's a question. Have you started building your retirement corpus? It's a question we often ask people in their 20s and early 30s, and the most common answer we receive is, "No, I haven't," which is then followed by a reasoning that I'm still young, I want to spend what I earn, investing is a hassle, etc., etc., etc. But what really surprises us is when we ask the second question, which is, when do you want to retire? And the most common answer here is 45. Hi everyone, my name is Shankar Nath, and I am not in my 20s, I'm not in my 30s, and I don't think I'll be able to retire at 45. But what our research team and I can do for you is to give you a roadmap that will make your retirement planning an easy and rewarding exercise with almost no intrusion into your current lifestyle. Let's begin. In all honesty, retirement does not get enough attention, and that's probably because for most people, retirement is at least 2 or 3 decades into the future. But then the real question is, why should one have a retirement plan? There are three reasons why. One, people are living longer, which means one should assume a longer post-retirement life that extends up to the age of 85. Two, inflation, which means what costs 100 rupees today is likely to cost 1,000 rupees 40 years from now, assuming an inflation rate of 6%. And a third reason why retirement planning is important is the lack of a government-sponsored social security system that can take care of the elderly. So longer life, inflation, and no social security, which means what you do today for your own betterment is going to determine what kind of life you lead post-retirement. Which is a bit like this YouTube channel, because if you subscribe to our channel today and watch our videos, then it will certainly go a long way in determining how good an investor you become in the future. So if you haven't done that yet, then do subscribe and also invite your friends and colleagues over Facebook and WhatsApp to access our growing repository of videos on investing, mutual funds, and personal finance. Before we get to how to build a retirement plan, let's address the importance of starting your retirement planning as early as possible. A good way of understanding this is with a few scenarios, 3 scenarios to be precise. In our first scenario, let's have two individuals, A and B, who start investing 10 years apart. A starts at the age of 25 while B starts at the age of 35. If A and B continue investing 10,000 rupees every month until the age of 60, A would have 5.8 crores of retirement corpus while B would have just 1.8 crores, which is almost 70% lower than what A would have accumulated. This is the most basic of all scenarios, and we can understand why A makes more, and that's because of the power of compounding, which at a 12% return really grows his money over those 35 years as compared to B, who got only 25 years to do the same. Now let's look at the second scenario. Here, let's assume A stops contributing towards his retirement at the age of 40 while B continues until the age of 60. In other words, A starts at 25 and stops at 40, which means A has contributed for 15 years, and B starts at 35 and continues till 60, which means B has contributed for 25 years. When we run the numbers, the math shows that A would have accumulated a retirement corpus of 4.8 crores by the age of 60 in spite of having contributed for only 15 years. On the other hand, B, as we had calculated earlier, would have only 1.8 crores in his retirement box, which is 62% lower than what A would have had. This scenario not only supports the premise of starting early, but is particularly interesting for those youngsters who said that they want to retire by the age of 40 or 45. And then we have the third and final scenario, which tries to look at how much should B invest over 25 years to reach the 4.8 crore corpus that A had achieved by investing 10,000 every month for 15 years. And the right answer to that is 27,000 rupees per month. As we can see here, starting early has its advantages, and if you have age on your side, then do explore setting up a retirement plan and let compounding help you garner a lot of wealth. But if you're someone who is a bit late on retirement planning, then here are some steps that you can take today to close the gap. Step 1. Start saving more. And this is not as difficult as people think it is and can be done in many ways, like reducing non-essential expenses, taking public transport or carpooling, or even moving to a smaller city where the rentals are much lower than a metro. Of course, once you have saved some extra money, don't forget to invest it properly. The second step one can take is to rejig your portfolio allocation. Now, this does not mean that one has to blindly move money from debt to equity. However, do explore some more tactical changes like switching from fixed income instruments like PPF to a more diversified and potentially higher return instrument like a mutual fund or a ELSS. And a final step that might be required is for you to increase your retirement age. In other words, since you might not have accumulated a high enough retirement corpus by the age of 60, it would be in your interest to work for a few more years until you have enough to retire. If your retirement calculations show that more active wealth needs to be generated post 60 years, then start thinking on what skills will be in demand 10-15 years from now, which you can offer with your experience and creativity. With this, let's now look at how you can build a retirement plan. Building a retirement plan is about answering two key questions. One, how much money should you have by the time you hit your retirement age? And the second question is how to go about building this retirement corpus. Let's start with the first question, that is how much money one needs to have. Now, we found two ways of calculating this. The first approach is a thumb rule that comes from the 1994 research paper by William Bengen, which has since been called the 4% rule. Now, the idea behind the 4% rule was not about calculating the amount of retirement money you need, but the focus here was to determine how much you can spend during your retirement years without the risk of running out of money. And to arrive at this 4% number, Bengen used a number of assumptions like the treasury yield, inflation rate, a 50-50 stock bond portfolio, and a few more variables. So here's how this works. Say you accumulate 2 crores by the age of 60. In this case, 4% of 2 crores is 8 lakhs, which means you should not spend more than 8 lakhs per year, which will then ensure that you have enough money for about 33 years. If you want to geek out and read the complete paper, then do access the link we have added in the description of this video. Now, in all honesty, we really didn't like the 4% rule, and that's because it was created in 1994 when inflation and treasury yields were quite high in the United States. 4% worked then, but it is not likely to work in today's world, and that's why we need to move to a more scientific method. In the second approach, there are 5 variables we need to answer. 1. At what age are you likely to retire? 2. What is your current monthly expenditure? Third, what's the life expectancy? And let's just assume this at 85 years. Number 4, what is the expected rate of inflation over the long term? And this one is a bit tough, so we'll just go with 6%. And finally, what are your expected pre- and post-retirement returns from your investments? Once you have this data, download the ETMONEY Retirement Corpus Calculator we have attached to the description of this video and input these details there. To illustrate, in the Excel sheet, we have built a default scenario where we have assumed a 35-year-old looking to retire at the age of 60. We have then made some more assumptions on his current monthly expenditure, the inflation rate, the estimated pre- and post-retirement returns. The Excel sheet then goes on and seeks an investment schedule from you, that is, how much money can you contribute every month towards your retirement corpus. As seen in the illustration, the 35-year-old started with an SIP of 20,000 rupees every month and upped that number by 10,000 rupees every 5 years. So when we input all these numbers in our Excel sheet, we get a pretty good idea of how our cash flow is likely to work, and most importantly, by when our money will run out. Like in this case, we see that the retirement corpus is likely to run dry before the 71st birthday, which will leave us in a spot of trouble for the next 14 years of our life when we have no money to support ourselves. So do try out the calculator. I'm pretty sure you'll find it really useful. And because it's an Excel sheet and we are leaving all the formulas open, feel free to make changes to it to suit your own requirements. Now that you know how much of a retirement corpus one needs to have, let's see how to go about the process of building a retirement corpus. It starts with an understanding of how much investable money you currently have and where that money is. For example, you might have already started investing via PPF, fixed deposits, or mutual funds. Similarly, there is likely to be some money in your EPF or Employee Provident Fund account. So go ahead, take a piece of paper and pen down where you stand in your happy retirement journey. The second step involves a projection of how your money will shape up. When doing projections, it is important to match the instrument with its performance assumptions. For example, investments in PPF and EPF are long-term natured and offer fixed interest rates which are generally closer to inflation, so do take that into account. Also, an EPF is a running contribution, so do account for an increase in the EPF contribution as your salary increases over time. In terms of returns, it is better to be conservative in your estimates. So when you make your projections, don't be too aggressive with your mutual funds and assume a 15% annual return. Worse, please don't assume an EPF returns of 8.5 to 9%. That is not likely to be the case. And if I were to prefer my own opinion, I would settle for 6% returns on account of EPF, PPF, and fixed deposits as it coincides with the long-term inflation rate of 6%. And for mutual funds, a conservative me would stick with 10% or maybe 11% annual returns. Of course, these are all estimates, so there is no way of knowing how things will turn out in the future. Okay, now that we know where we stand and what the future might look like, the third and final step is to create a plan that takes us closer to our targeted retirement corpus. This is a future plan, and due to the importance of it, do give more preference to planned and systematic investment avenues like your EPF or PPF contributions, your NPS contributions, and most definitely to your mutual fund systematic investment plans. In fact, there are 4 products we have spoken extensively about in the ETMONEY YouTube channel. And to build more focus towards retirements, we have listed our best videos or the ones we like in the description of this video. Further, to help you arrive at your target retirement corpus, we have created a simple Excel-based calculator which you can find in the same file that you had downloaded earlier under the worksheet titled Projections. So do play around with it and feel free to make changes to the Excel sheet to suit your specific requirements. And with this, we come to the end of this video. I sure hope this video has given you some perspectives on retirement planning and has sparked a thought in you that it's never too early or never too late to start planning for one's retirement. If you like this presentation, then do help us spread the good word by sharing it over WhatsApp, Facebook, and Twitter with your friends and connections. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to catching up with you next week with another insightful video. Until then.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.